What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about how wide receivers can make more explosive breaks. So we're going to be talking about some of the common mistakes that wide receivers make. We're going to be showing a good example of a route where this receiver makes a very explosive break, and then a bad example. Then we're going to show you how you guys can be more explosive off the line with your press releases. So I hope this video helps you guys out, but also if you're a wide receiver and you're maybe not sure what to do on the field to help your route running improve, to help your press releases improve, check out that very first link in the description below for our Route Running Bible. What you get access to, it's over an hour and a half's worth of content. The first video program that you'll get access to is our How to Improve Your Route Running in 10 Days. It's a 2-week-long training schedule for wide receivers on the field. We give you all the drills you need to do with sets, repetitions, and we break down each drill with a full-speed example. And then you'll get a 48-minute-long video with 20 different press releases you can use, when to use it, and the situations to use it, and then obviously drills to work on each one of those. So for our Route Running Bible, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started. So we're going to be taking a look at two routes right off the bat here. We're going to be looking at these two different whip routes here. So the first break is I wouldn't say bad example, but it's a not as good example of the route from Keenan Allen right here, okay? So these two whip routes is what we're going to be focused on. So the number one thing to getting explosive breaks is you got to be able to sell, and you have to commit your upper half. So when we're getting into this whip route right here, you see how this receiver, what he starts to do before he breaks is you see how he starts to open up that shoulder and open up that hip, right? There's two things wrong with that, right? So again, and obviously it's a great route. He's able to get 3 steps, he's able to get a lot of separation, but against a DB who maybe isn't a little bit greedy and gets his eyes in that backfield and wants to jump this thing, who's a little bit more disciplined watching these hips, we won't get as much separation because this is an indicator. So when you guys start to turn your hips and your shoulders, when you guys start to run up into a break, if he would have stayed like this would have been perfect. But because he started to open up a little bit, that starts to let this DB know that he's going this way. Nobody runs a slant, nobody runs a drag with this shoulder and with this hip kind of halfway open, right? So now that's the number one thing. Number two, that won't make you as explosive because you don't need as violent of a change of direction. Because when you're starting to already turn before you snap down on the break, that takes away the explosion of the drop. So many receivers struggle with this. They'll be running a comeback route, they'll be running a curl route, and right before they get, let's say it's a 15-yard comeback, they'll get to 13 yards and they start to turn, and then they have this real crisp 3-step break similar to how this receiver does, but they gave the route away and they don't have any explosion with their drop because they're slowing down essentially. When you start to turn this inside shoulder, when you start to turn this inside hip, it makes it really easy to get out in 3 steps, but again, you don't have that violent change of direction. And when we watch this thing full speed, it's kind of a slower break, right? It's not like it's the most violent thing in the world. Now, when we take a look at Keenan Allen's break, you see how there's more of a violent drop, right? He's really snapping this thing off. So let's talk about it. So when he's running this drag route going into a whip, you see how his shoulders and his hips stay relatively committed. There's a slight open up, but he drops, then he starts to turn. There's not a turn before he drops. He drops his hips, then that second step is what starts to turn his hips, and that's what gets him back on that 45. And you see how much this receiver, or how much this DB is committed to this thing. That's the number one thing that you have to do when you're trying to make more explosive breaks to the top of the route is don't start to round it too early. You want to drop your hips, then let's be concerned with getting my hips out of it, right? So again, let's talk about this route from Keenan Allen because we already watched that one full speed a couple times. Just make sure that we don't start to turn that shoulder and that hip too early. I don't want to turn before I drop. Let's not turn before I drop my hips. Let's drop my hips. Let's stay committed. Then I'm worried about turning. So now, again, let's look at the Keenan Allen route. So when he comes off of here, same release, same kind of wide step, same thing. He's just running this drag. He's got his eyes to the middle. Hips and shoulders are committed to the middle. And you see how he drops, and now he's starting to turn. The drop happens first. You want to drop your weight down. That's what forces you to have that explosive break, right? There's like that mind-body connection. You want to have a connection with your body and a connection with your mind. You almost want to trick your mind into forcing yourself to be more violent with your break. And obviously, certain things apply, right? You got to be doing the right drills on the field to build the stability in your legs. You got to strengthen your legs in the gym. You have to be doing all those things to make this more efficient, I would say. But it's the same kind of concept, and I've seen it time and time again with receivers. You just can't start to give away the route too early. The second you start to turn this hip and turn this shoulder, this DB doesn't think that it's a drag anymore. This DB doesn't think that it's a dig anymore, or a slant anymore, excuse me. So when we drop my hips, the way to get your hips turned is that second step. You want to be violent, then your second step starts to pivot because that pivot step is what starts to turn your hips. You don't want to manually turn your hips. You want to drop, pivot that step, then that third step hooks around. You see how Allen kind of gets stuck on that third step. That's a great indication that he's doing this break correctly, right? Sometimes when you guys are running routes, you guys are running routes versus air, obviously the goal is to get it crisp. 3 steps, be super smooth. And sometimes on a whip route, guys can get out of it in 2 steps, right? But if you guys feel like that break was way too easy, like you got out in 3 perfect steps, everything was smooth, check yourself. You should be thinking, okay, what did I do wrong there? That felt super easy. What did I do wrong? And if you didn't do anything wrong and you're getting better, that's great. But you got to constantly always be looking for those little details because those little details make the biggest biggest difference. Those little details are the difference between a slow sink of your hips and a violent drop of your hips. So this is a great example of Keenan Allen of when you stay committed with your shoulders and your hips, that drop becomes a little bit more violent. You could create a little bit more energy and really accelerate off of this break. Let's watch today's route one more time. Let's watch them both full speed one more time again. Just make sure, like I said, fellas, don't start to round it too early. Let's not have that slow drop of my hips. Let's make sure that it's a violent drop of your hips because you are committed to this thing and because you are trying to really sell slant or drag on a whip route. All right, guys, if you have not heard, we are going to be coming to the Arizona area for a quarterback and wide receiver training clinic. So if you guys want more information on that, if you guys want to sign up, we're only offering 20 spots for each clinic, October 2nd and October 3rd. Check out that second link in the description below, right below our Route Running Bible. It's a great opportunity for you guys to get better. We're going to have myself out there working with the quarterbacks and the receivers, and we will be bringing in a Division I speed coach who's going to help you guys with your 40 time, running mechanics, speed and agility, and all that good stuff. So again, check out that second link in the description if you're in the Arizona area and you want to come out and get some great work in for one of our quarterback and wide receiver training clinics. Let's get back to this video. So now we're going to be talking about how you guys can get a more explosive release off the line with this route here from Amari Cooper. Okay, so number one thing you got to be able to do is you got to make sure that you are throwing your hip into the break, and that first step of your release is what's going to get you out of this route. So what Cooper takes is he takes this like kick step, as we like to call it. Okay, so a lot of people who maybe aren't as experienced in the receiver world think that this is a false step. This is not a false step. This is a prep step. It is a step for balance, and it is a step for explosion. So anytime you guys are working a move like a wide step release, maybe a slide release where you're trying to get outside of the DB's frame, we got to really focus on being able to throw myself out of there. So you almost want to take this false or this prep step. So you see how he takes this like kick behind him, right? This kick behind is a great example of how you guys can use that back foot to really push you out of there. There's something about that kick step that really allows you to throw your hip and get outside of this DB's frame. Because if I'm trying to move this DB here, I actually have to threaten him here. I'm not going to be able to just step inside of his frame and get him to jump. I actually have to threaten him to a certain direction, right? And so the explosion comes from you being able to throw out there. You see how he uses that foot to really skip to get his momentum going to the outside so he could throw this 1-2. And that first step, you see how much he's pushing off of this first step, how much he's throwing his hip with the cut, his toes are staying forward, that shin angle is at a perfect spot. That's how we get that explosion. You got to use that prep step, that little kick step, false step, whatever you want to call it, to shoot yourself outside the DB's frame so you can really throw and you could bring your upper half with your foot. A lot of guys will step this far, but a lot of guys leave their upper half to the inside. You have to bring your upper half. You want to cut inside of your frame, but outside of his frame. And that's the magic formula for you guys to get this DB to obviously jump off that platform and to get him to sit to the inside so I can create space to the outside, inside, whatever you guys are doing. So make sure that we use some kind of a prep step to really get me to explode off the line, and make sure you are throwing your upper half with the cut anytime we are working a release. But also, something else you could take, you don't have to kick step if you feel like a little bit uncomfortable with that. You could kind of take like a little, like kind of a, I call it a prep step, but where you like kind of pick your front foot up and put it right back down. But that little pickup, like again, some people call it a false step, that little pickup with your front foot can really push you off of there, and you could really push off that inside arch to explode and get outside this DB's frame as well. So the kick step behind and the prep step with the front foot are two things that can really help you guys get more explosion, get outside this DB's frame, and you could really throw your hip into this break. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great example of how you guys can be more explosive off the line by one of the best route runners in the league. All right, guys, we want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comments below. I always appreciate hearing from you guys. Always appreciate the feedback. Really means a lot. And again, fellas, if you want to get our route running Bible, over an hour and a half's worth of content, 2-week wide receiver on-field workout schedule, and a 48-minute long video on 20 press releases, when to use each one, the situations to use each one, and drills to work each press release, check out that very first link in the description below. And again, if you're in the Arizona area, want to come out and get some work in October 2nd and 3rd, check out that second link below. I will see you guys next time.